Whenever I interacted with Kaine, I was reminded about something from my past. Maybe my mind has been confusing her with my sister this whole time. Here we go.
Welcome back to NieR. It's time to start what I heard is called Branch B. Now, we're playing the game again, starting obviously from Kaine's reawakening, and we're going to see what the differences are. And apparently it starts with what I assume is visual novel stuff, so let's spend some time reading. The sound of rain filled the village. The steep cliffs that surrounded the area magnified sound, causing even the slightest drizzle to rattle like a thunderstorm. Thin wisps of smoke streamed from huts as the villagers huddled in their homes and waited out the rain. A single child, however, had braved the downpour and was now wandering slowly towards the wooden hawk-shaped weather vane at the center of town. The wanderer reached the vane, which had existed for as long as any could remember, and stared. The child's face was simultaneously delicate and fierce, like a teacup that had survived a shipwreck. Those traits combined with pale white skin to give the face an almost sexless quality. If the beak turns east, I go home. If it stays west, then I... The child blinked. Rain slowly dripped down the young one's short hair and began its long descent to the ground. Come on. Come on! The child felt a slight breeze and watched as the vane slowly creaked to life, spinning this way and that for a moment. It finally settles with the beak pointing firmly towards the east. East? Really? Before the vane could move again, a jagged rock came spinning and tumbling through the air, finally striking home against the child's head. The force of the blow dropped the child to the ground as a hail of stones began to fall all around. Oh no, they found me. A heartbreaking smile crept across the child's face as the stones continued their assault. Through the rain, the sound of multiple footsteps grew louder before a voice rang out. Yoo-hoo! Kaine? The voice belonged to Demo. Worst of all, the bullies in the Eyrie. As Kaine struggled to stand, a final stone came skittering through the mud and bounced against her foot. Blood oozed from a cut above her eye and blurred her vision. But she could make out the shapes of Demo and his usual gang of idiots. The boy seemed taken aback for a moment by Kaine's seeming indifference to the blood dripping from her face, but quickly regained his bravado. What's up, freak? You like the rain? You like getting all wet? Or did you finally decide to run away from home? Though she knew it was futile, Kaine turned to leave. Before she could get more than a few steps, the other children scrambled to surround her, cruelty burning in their eyes. Kaine knew those were not the only eyes on her. The tormentor's parents watched from the safety of their homes. She was attuned to this sensation. It was one she had experienced many times before. While some villagers simply turned a blind eye to the actions of their children, many encouraged it openly. In a society ruled by superstition and fear, Kaine was something to be hated, and if possible, destroyed. I didn't say you could leave, freak, Demo's words chewed at her, like a worm through an apple. "He can't hurt me," she lied to herself. "Be strong, be brave. He can't hurt me, he can't hurt me, he can't hurt." Oh look! The little freak is gonna cry. What's wrong? Are you sad that everyone hates you and wants you dead? Kaine prayed for the rain to flood down and carry her away from a world that seemed to have no place for her. But if there were gods, they chose to ignore her. As Demo crept ever closer, the clouds began to thin, and the rain slowed. Even the weather hates me. I'm useless. A failure. I wish Demo's rock had taken my head off. Kaine couldn't meet Demo's leering gaze. She lowered her eyes and stared at the muddy ground below. The bully moved forward until he was inches away. She could smell the scent of old meat on his breath. The boy grabbed Kaine's face with thick fingers and yanked it upward. She tried to turn away, but he forced her gaze back and jammed his thumb against her eyelid to pry it open. "You're a freak." No, I'm not." "Did you just say no?" Demo grinned evilly. "You don't say no to me. No one says no to me." Not even taking his attention from Kaine, he called to his cohorts. "Come on, guys. Let's give the freak what she deserves." As soon as Demo finished, kicks and blows began to rain down upon Kaine. Demo paused, still grinning, as Kaine curled into a ball and tried, oh so hard, to make the pain stop. "I don't get you, freak. What you acting like a girl for, huh? Everyone knows what you really are." Kaine ignored the question, choosing instead to stare at the weather vane. It continued to point east, as if supremely confident about the future it had chosen for her. Go home? Yeah, that's a funny joke for someone with dead parents and no home to go to. "Freak!" chanted the children. "Freak! Freak! Freak!" Kaine closed her eyes and listened to the rain, waiting for the pain to start again. As the clutching hands of the village children closed around her, she bent her mind to the sound of the rain, letting it become her world entire. The rain fell, but the pain never came. Only when the laughter of her tormentors turned to terrified cries did she dare open a single blood-caked eye. Kaine was shocked to see Demo sprawled on the ground, holding his head and screaming in pain. She could see blood welling from spaces between his fat, twisted fingers. Oh my god, he's crying! He's actually crying! Deprived of their leader, the other children glanced back and forth between themselves, as if waiting for someone to step forward and take charge. When no savior emerged, they began an uneasy shuffle away from Kaine. But the young girl was the least of their concerns. Instead, their attention was rapt on the ancient woman standing a few feet away. After struggling for breath for a moment, she finally spoke in a voice thick with rage. "Hurts like a bitch, don't it? Now I suggest you scatter before I throw another one. And if any of you little bastards ever touch my Kaine again, I'll do far worse than throw a rock. You can count on it." The old woman crouched down and gently touched the hand Demo was using to cover the wound. Before he could think to protest, she ground her palm into the wound and twisted back and forth. "Ah!" he screamed, leaping to his feet. "Stop it! What are you doing?" "Quit whining. Ain't no one ever died from a scratch." "You hit me with a rock, you stupid bitch! A big one! That thing could have killed me." The old woman shrugged. "Death is the best cure for stupid." Demo's face twisted with rage at her words, locking his eyes on Kaine. He took a step backwards and spat on the ground. "Get out! Leave this village! No one wants you here! Either of you!" Seeing the old woman grab another stone, Demo and his companions turned tail and ran. As they fled, the old woman grabbed her side and barked out a single laugh. Huh! Look at that fat boy go. Guess he's healthy enough to run from a fight. The woman's smile faded as she turned her attention to Kaine. Kneeling down, she removed her shawl and placed it around the young girl's shoulders. Then produced a cloth from the folds of her dress and began blotting at the blood on her forehead. "Oh, Kaine," she said, "why didn't you fight back? You're stronger than that lot." The words of her grandmother stung Kaine, and she turned away. "Don't be nice to me," she said. "I don't deserve it. Nothing matters anymore." Her tears, held in cheek for so long, finally began to fall on the muddy ground below. "Everyone hates me. They think I cause bad things to happen. They think I'm a freak. I wish I was dead." As Kaine's tears turned to sobs, she felt her grandmother's hands on her shoulders. Despite her advanced age and diminutive size, she was a woman of surprising strength, and Kaine found herself unable to turn away. "Don't talk like that, Kaine. It's a river wide and deep that flows between the realms of this world and the next, and it grants no mercy to any that attempt the crossing. You got a duty to fight until your last breath. Understand?" The old woman tightened her grip and tried to still the tremor in her voice. "You know the pain of losing someone close to you, Kaine? You know because you survived it." As the words hit home, Kaine was struck by the force of her love for the old woman. As a young child, she didn't even know of her grandmother, but when her parents died, the woman quickly accepted her as her own. Grandma, as Kaine called her, was cunning, vulgar, and quick to violence, and their first few years together had not been easy. But with each year that passed, Kaine and her grandmother had grown closer. However, it was only now, sitting in the mud with tears and blood caking on her face, that Kaine truly understood the depths of her affection. Here was a woman who had seen hard times, who had seen death, who had fought through all these things and somehow emerged on the other side. If anyone could understand Kaine's pain and loneliness, it was her. Do I make you sick, Grandma?" "Course not. Don't be an ass." Kaine drew her grandmother's moth-eaten shawl around her body and shuddered. "But my body, it's not normal. If I was normal, then Mom and Dad wouldn't." "Hush," interrupted Grandma. "I'll not hear another word of this nonsense. You're my granddaughter, and I love you. And if folks have a problem with that, they can just go to hell." With that, the old woman reached out and placed a wreath of dry flowers on Kaine's hair. The skill it took to bend the flowers without breaking the stems or losing a single petal was remarkable, and the beauty of it made Kaine want to cry all over again. "Oh my gosh, these are lunar tears. Grandma, you made this for me?" Lunar tears were legendary flowers. Most people could live their entire lives without ever seeing one, and yet her grandmother had somehow collected a dozen or more. Kaine reached up and touched the wreath as if she couldn't believe it was real. "Where did you find these?" "Oh, you know, just stumbled on them one day while I was out doing the shopping." The old woman turned away as she was explaining, leading Kaine to suspect that the search had been much more difficult than she was letting on. The pains she took to construct the ornament, let alone track down the flower's use in its construction, made Kaine's heart hurt. She reached up and gently adjusted the wreath, admiring the way it felt between her fingers. "Didn't quite turn out right," said her grandmother as she squinted at it. "These old hands have trouble with delicate work, but it sure looks good on a pretty girl like you." Kaine blushed and turned away. You think I'm pretty?" "Of course you are." What a foolish thing to say. Thank you, Grandma. Her grandmother smiled. We're gonna be fine, you and me, she said. As long as we got each other, we'll be just fine. Kaine took her grandmother's hand in hers. The two of them struggled to their feet. As they began the long walk home, Kaine gripped the hand with all her might, as if trying to stop smoke from drifting away on the wind. The rain had stopped. Kaine stood beneath the weather vane, watching it spin in lazy circles, no longer caring about the direction it faced when it stopped. I don't need to escape. I have a home now. Grandma loves me, and that's enough, even if it's us against the world. Kaine let her gaze drift up past the vane and into the cloudy sky. The last faint hints of a rainbow were slowly fading. As she turned and headed for home, the light scattered into a million particles and vanished, seemingly taken away on the breeze. There's more. God damn it. In the distance, Kaine heard the steady sounds of an axe striking wood. The noise had a purposeful quality to it, as if she was hearing a master woodsman go about his work. The firewood being produced, however, was as far from a work of art as could be. Pieces of every shape and size were being flung about a barren yard with wild abandon. Anyone trying to stack such wood would probably die of frustration before the job was through. Stupid piece of shit axe! Kaine's grandmother flailed away with the axe, filling the air with both splinters of wood and words that would make the most hardened sailor blush. Grandma! Called Kaine. What? Yelled the old woman, taking her eyes off the wood for a moment. Oh, it's you, Kaine. Don't get too close, or I might take your goddamn foot off. She brought the axe down on a piece of wood, sending the chips flying in every direction. One spun past Kaine close enough for her to hear the whistle, at which point she decided to step back. Once she scuttled to a safe distance, she cupped her hands around her mouth and shouted, Grandma, do you need any help? I can get you water or lunch or a new axe or something. The axe poised to strike another wobbly blow, paused in midair. The old woman considered her granddaughter's offer for a moment, then smiled. Tell you what, since I'm doing such a piss poor job of chopping, why don't you come here and take over so I can go get the water? Shades have been restless lately, you know. I don't want you running into one of them bastards. Relinquishing the axe, her grandmother picked up a long pole with wooden buckets on either end. Gathering water was by far the more difficult of the two jobs, but Kaine knew better than to complain. Once Grandma's mind was set, there was no changing it. Kaine did her best to help with chores, but Grandma took every task that required travel to the village. Though she had a long list of plausible excuses, Kaine knew the real reason. She didn't want her grandmother to be taunted and harassed by the villagers. Her granddaughter, my bad. I make mistakes. They're making me read like 10 fucking novels right here. Once Kaine moved in, Grandma decided to take up residence a good distance from the Eyrie. Out of sight, out of mind seemed to be the best policy when it came to the villagers and her granddaughter, and rare were the days when any but the two of them could be found on the rocky acre of land they call home. Kaine enjoyed the solitude but harbored a secret resentment that her grandmother was forced to spend her golden years in such a place. After watching her grandmother leave, Kaine turned attention to the task at hand. She'd never chopped wood before, soon discovered why the old woman hated the chore. Swing after swing of the axe produced only a tiny crack in the wood, and when she finally managed to connect it with a solid stroke, the tool embedded itself in the log and refused to budge. Frustrated, Kaine swung the axe around her head and threw it, logging all across the yard. Damn it, crap. She suddenly understood the joy her grandmother felt in a good curse. Happier now, she picked up the axe, forced it from the wood, and resumed chopping. She had a natural skill with a blade, but the task was challenging, and blisters soon began to form on her small pink hands. This is tough. My logs are all weird sizes. Spitting on her palms and ignoring the pain, Kaine redoubled her efforts. Just as she was developing a rhythm, Grandma returned from the village. Setting down her buckets with a small sigh, she took one look at the logs and coughed out a wheezy laugh. Pretty clumsy, girl. You better practice if you... Her grandmother suddenly collapsed to her knees, causing one of the buckets to wobble precariously. Eyes wide, Kaine dropped the axe and ran to her grandmother's side. Grandma! The old woman shook her head and pointed a trembling finger at the bucket. Get the bucket. Can't let it spill. Kaine steadied the bucket with a foot as she knelt by her grandmother. A small bit of water sloshed over the side and made a new home the hem of her dress, but Kaine didn't notice. Grandma, what's happening? Crazed with panic, she grabbed her grandmother by the shoulders and shook. After a moment, the woman lifted her arms and batted Kaine away. Stop that, just stop. Breathing heavily. It ain't like I'm dying. I'm not that old. I'm just tired. Kaine desperately wanted to believe her, but one look at the old woman's shaking hands and worn face told her more than words ever could. Well, sorry, if I can drink. Let me drink something here. Ah, there we go. That felt good. Her grandmother had lived a long, hard life, and it seemed the bill was coming due. The time when her grandmother watched over Kaine was ending. Sooner than either of them had feared, the positions would be reversed. The next morning, Kaine came to the side of her grandmother's bed and took her wrinkled hand. Grandma, you're sick, and you need medicine. I'm going to the village. The old woman shook her head and tried to rise, but Kaine gently pushed her down. It's all right, she said. I'll be fine. Her grandmother fixed her with a gaze that could melt steel. After what seemed an eternity, she finally lowered her eyes and sighed. Well, I don't like it, goddammit, but I guess I should quit being so stubborn and let you grow up. The old woman watched as Kaine strapped on her boots and made her way down the road to the village. Later, as an unseen sun made its way across a dark and rainy sky, she was still watching. Kaine moved at a brisk pace, checking her pockets every few minutes to make sure the money her grandmother gave her was still there. Every noise caused her to spin on her heels, making sure she wasn't being stalked by a shade, or worse, Demo and his gang. But she encountered neither tormentors nor shades, and Kaine finally found herself at the entrance to the village. The few adults she could see glanced sideways at her, then muttered to each other behind raised hands before slinking away into the shadows. Her heart racing, Kaine took a series of rapid, shallow breaths and tried to calm herself. I have to prove myself. I have to help Grandma. I have to be strong. She chanted those words to herself over and over. She slowly made her way. Finally, her eyes settled on a rotund older woman who was angrily waving her arms in the air and telling anyone would listen exactly what she thought of Kaine's presence. Hey lady, said Kaine with a bravado she did not feel. Where's the apothecary? The woman's flabby cheeks shook in bewildered anger. How dare this thing speak to me, they seemed to say. But Kaine saw that her eyes held a different emotion. Fear. Yeah, we're both scared, lady. Trust me on this one. Which way? The woman pointed at a small building to her right before hitching up her dress and stumbling off in the other direction. Kaine cringed, expecting a stone to come flying from the assembled crowd, but none came. Her mind was filled with a strange sense of pride as she made her way to the apothecary, but the new emotion had little time to take root, for as soon as she opened the door, she noticed a familiar customer at the counter. It was Demo. He'd clearly been sent there on some kind of family errand, because his gang of followers was nowhere to be seen. Oh my what are you doing here, freak? The insult was delivered with odd force, and Kaine happily ignored it. Stretching on tiptoes to see over the counter, she asked the shopkeeper for the medication. Ha, barked Demo. That old bitch finally keel over? Go to hell, Demo. The boy's eyes grew so wide they seemed ready to fall out of his head. Before he could let fly a comeback, or worse, a punch, the apothecary told them to knock it off before he kicked them out of the store. Demo slunk out of the shop, cursing Kaine under his breath. Once he was gone, she allowed herself to breathe once more, taking a brief tour of the shop while the owner prepared her medication. Countless tiny bottles filled the cramped store, with each with a label written in some indecipherable language. An ocean of aromas assaulted her nose, creating a scent that was exotic, but not altogether unpleasant. Seeing such a variety of supplies gave Kaine a sense of peace. Surely in a world so vast, there would be a place she could call home. On the far wall behind the counter rested a portrait of a stunning young girl. The picture had once contained bright, vibrant colors, but time had worked its magic, and they were beginning to fade. The beauty of the work, however, remained undiminished. You like that picture? Kaine turned to find the apothecary with a small vial of medicine in his hand. His eyes were gentle but sad, and they seemed to stare through her and into nothing as he spoke. That's my daughter. I sketched it when she was just a little girl. She's been dead for a long time now. Kaine didn't know how to respond. She just stared at the portrait and tried to come up with the right words. Pictures are wonderful things, continued the shopkeeper. They let the ones closest to you live on forever. He shook his head slightly, then looked down at Kaine and smiled. Handing her the medicine, he reached into his sizable green apron and produced a handful of old wax crayons. You should have these. There's no one left that I wish to draw. Kaine took an instinctive step back, causing the shopkeeper's face to darken. Yes, I've heard the rumors about you, he said. It's a small village and word travels quickly. Between you and me, I'm not sure which of them to believe, but I also don't think they matter much. I knew your grandmother, Kali, and I think the way she was driven out of this town is just deplorable. Grandma's name was Kali? Thought Kaine suddenly. She was still mulling this new fact over in her mind as she reached out and gently took the crayons from the apothecary's hands. Your grandmother is an old friend of mine, he said as Kaine scooted away yet again, and I owe her much. I'm willing to wager that she would like it if you drew a picture of her. Yes, I think she would like that very much. Kaine muttered a quiet agreement, but inside her heart was bursting. Never before had a villager treated her with anything but complete contempt. It was a tiny, almost imperceptible step, but it was a step nonetheless. With enough tiny steps, she might one day discover the rest of the world. When she returned home, she found her grandmother asleep in her bed. Her feet were blackened and raw, even bleeding a bit in places, leading Kaine to think that she had been pacing around the room until exhaustion finally caught up with her. She placed the medicine by her grandmother's pillow and turned to leave, but found the old woman's hand clasped around her arm. Back again already, aren't you? I fucking butchered that. She's back. What's up, nigga? Is she back? Say it, nigga. Come here. Let me have a look at you. Grandma sat up. Jesus, fucking don't fall apart now. There's still more, apparently. She examined Kaine from head to toe. Finally satisfied that nothing terrible had befallen her grandchild, she leaned back and allowed herself to relax. Well, how was it? Did those bastards give you any trouble? It was kind of fun, said Kaine with a small smile. No, seriously, it was. It was fun, was it? Asked her grandmother in a voice which implied she believed anything but. Uh-huh. So anytime you need me to run an errand, just let me know. As she spoke, Kaine removed the crayons from her pocket. After a brief explanation of their source, she informed her grandmother that she was going to sketch her portrait. A portrait of me? Ridiculous. No one wants to stare at this wrinkled old crone. But Grandma, It'll make you live forever. Horse manure, said her grandmother, throwing back the sheet from her bed. Living forever would just piss me off. I'll put those away and help with dinner. But Kaine would not relent, and in the end, Grandma found herself leaning against the wall of their house as if posing for a master artist. Kaine took up the crayons and eyed her subject carefully. Just as her grandmother was about to nod off, Kaine finished the work. After staring at it a bit, she released it from her grip and let it slowly drift to the floor. It's terrible, it doesn't look like you at all. Apparently children aren't good at art, what a fucking surprise. I'm sorry. Motherfucker thinks that crayons would make drawing easy. What a dumb. The old woman's eyes narrowed at her granddaughter's disappointment. Let me be the judge of it, she said, ignoring the pain in her back and reaching for the paper. The sketch could have been of a person's face. The sketch could have been a person's face. It also could have been a boulder, a lump of clay, or an incredibly misshapen loaf of bread. All rendered in a chaotic array of colors. The old woman stared at the picture for a long time and then slowly wheezed out a laugh. Oh, Kaine, she said between laughter, you truly are my blood. You're as clumsy as me and I love it. But, hush, I won't hear any more bull about how ugly you think it is. Came for the heart and I'll treasure it always. True to her word, the old woman gave the picture a place of honor above the kitchen table. In the days that followed, Kaine would often catch her staring at the portrait with a strange smile, an action she interpreted as silent, mocking laughter. A week later, Kaine could stand it no more and asked her grandmother to take the artwork down. Posh, said the old woman. I'll take this down when they roll me in my shroud. She pondered this for a bit, then turned to Kaine and dropped to one knee. Listen to me, girl. Seeing this picture makes me happy in a way I've never felt before. And it makes me want to go on, so that someday you can feel the same happiness. It was a moment that burned itself in Kaine's memory. A perfect blend of pride and love and joy that came together to form a lifelong remembrance. That pause was when I looked and saw that this is a 32-minute long recording. She swore to never forget this moment, to never forget the old woman who had made her place in the world possible. Time moves on, people and memories come in and out of a life like ghosts passing through a hall, but this moment will be different, Kaine swore, because I will remember it forever. Forever. Oh my god. This is one video. You're suffering with me. Kaine listened to the sound of crackling firewood and stared at the black object on her plate. She'd been pushing it around the wooden disc for a good 10 minutes, ignoring the bemused stare of her grandmother. Finally, she summoned her courage and gave the object a brief sniff. Sharp, bitter scents flew up her nostrils and made its home there, causing her face to twist with disgust. Grandma, I can't believe you want me to eat a bug. The old woman threw some more wood under the cooking pot and snorted. It's no bug, you fool girl, it's a berry. Why the hell would I be feeding you bugs? Yeah, well, it looks like a bug. And I think it's burnt or something because it smells bad. With that, Kaine held her nose and threw the berry in her mouth, chewing as little as possible. Oh yeah, that's terrible, alright. Why, you little brat. Look at the sass on you. You've been spending too much time with me, and that's a fact. 5 years had passed since the moment when Kaine's grandmother saved her from the bullies. As is often the way with two stubborn people, their relationship had grown in fits and starts, but moved forward all the same. Meals that used to be somber affairs were now filled with laughter and hurled abuse in equal measure. Kaine could not remember a time when she had been happier. As the years went by, Kaine started to shoulder more and more of the daily responsibilities. Her grandmother's legs grew weaker by the day, and she could no longer do many of the chores she used to take for granted. And so this morning found Kaine lacing up her work boots with a breakfast of burned berry rolling through her belly. Where are you going today? Asked Grandma suddenly. Kaine looked up surprised. The old woman rarely asked for the specifics anymore. Well, I was going to check out the kelma trees and see if they were ripe. Thought we could make some jam or something, and I'm gonna pick up some flagstones, so I need to take the wheelbarrow. Flagstones? What in the hell for? Kaine stared at her grandmother, then held out an arm and swept it around their home. Constructed mostly of cloth, rope, and rubble, the old place sagged like a boxer in the final round. Grandma, a dying cat, could chew through this house. I'm gonna build a stone wall so we have some protection. The old woman laughed, exposing her toothless grin to the world. God damn it, girl, if a bunch of thieves want to ransack this old place, let them come. We got nothing worth stealing anyway. I'm not worried about thieves, I'm worried about shades. People saw one west of the village yesterday. The old woman tilted her head and stared at her granddaughter. Well, shoot, I don't know why you have to do it today. We can worry about it some other... Grandma, no. Stab. If I don't go to the kelma trees, we won't eat tonight, you know that. A confused expression passed across the old woman's face, and for a moment, she was a small child lost at a carnival. Yes, she said after a bit. Yes, of course, you're right. I'm sorry, Kaine. Lately, it seems my mind is... She didn't finish the thought, instead, walking over to our nightstand and gently taking the wreath of lunar tears from the drawer, the flower petals had aged to a brilliant whiteness, and Kaine thought it was more beautiful now than the day she first received it. You're going to be a true woman soon, Grandma said as she placed the flowers in the girl's hair. So that means less chatter about shades and building defensive walls and more talk about how beautiful you become. Annoyed, Kaine reached up to remove the garland. The look on her grandmother's face stopped her hand. You're a beautiful thing, said the old woman, and there ain't another like you in all the world. I'm very proud of you. Okay, Grandma, that's enough goddamn compliments for one day. Such a mouth on you, where'd it come from? Gee, I wonder. I'll teach you to sass me, girl. Suddenly, she lurched forward, grabbed Kaine by the ears, pulling her around the room, with a crazed grin on her face. Grandma, yelled Kaine in a quacking voice, or whack, 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 whack. The old woman stared at her and blinked, wondering why she suddenly turned into a duck, and then slowly held her wrinkled hands out as if it was the first time she had ever seen them. Oh, I don't know what happened here. I'm sorry, girl. Sometimes my mind just... Kaine thought the look on her grandmother's face was the most heartbreaking thing she'd ever seen. Listen, she began. Maybe I should stay home after all. No, I won't have you stay here to look at me. Go get your fruit and the wall shit. Do it. When you come back, I'll have a nice grasshopper dinner waiting for you. Kaine rolled her eyes and said, man, my life is awful. And went off. Kaine could feel the old woman's eyes watching her as she moved down the path. Don't turn around. Don't turn around, she told herself, but in the end, the temptation was too great. She spun on her heel for one final look and saw a small bent woman standing in front of a ramshackle hut with a sad expression on her face. Gods, she looks so old now. It's like the wind could reach down and just carry her away. Kaine worried about her grandmother all day, causing her work to suffer. What little fruit she could collect was tossed carelessly into the wheelbarrow, and she only found a couple of stones before losing interest in the project. Finally, as dusk approached, she decided to call it a day. Cursing herself for the lack of focus, Kaine pushed the nearly empty wheelbarrow back down the path. As she crested the final hill, she suddenly froze in place. The wheelbarrow fell from her fingers and collapsed on its side, sending a few pieces of wrinkled brown fruit rolling back down the hill. Her gaze was transfixed by a thick black cloud that hovered just ahead, tracing its path with a finger. Kaine suddenly felt her stomach knot in on itself. No, oh gods, no. Her grandmother's house was ablaze, the flames licking up, as if it were trying to touch the sky itself. Grandma? Grandma! Kaine ran, then, faster than she had ever moved in her life. Once she tripped on a stone and went sprawling into the rocky ground, but she leapt to her feet and continued running, unmindful of the blood that spilled from her wounded hands and knees. As she got closer and closer, Kaine's mind began to race in time with her footfalls. It's too dark. It's too dark. Not just fire. Can't be fire. Too much smoke. Gotta save her, gotta save her. She burst into the front yard and came to a sudden halt, her worst suspicions confirmed. The smoke from the fire was mingling with a thick, inky blackness of an enormous shade. The massive creature supported itself on 3 twisted feet, and its sheet balanced through the means of a large armored tail. Scales, horns, claws sprouted from its body in random, chaotic pattern, giving it the appearance of a lizard designed by some insane god. Seeing Kaine, it let out a roar and flicked its tail, sending small whirlwinds spinning around the yard. For a moment, the creature retreated into a shimmering, inky blackness, as if her mind was unable to comprehend that such a thing could actually exist. Then the smell hit her, a blend of rotted meat and excrement. The horror became real once more. The creature bellowed again, and this time Kaine responded with a scream of her own. "Alright, you bastard," she thought, as her scream echoed off the high cliffs around them. "It's you or me, let's go." The shade eyed Kaine with bemused interest. Then it began looking from her to the house and back again, as if urging her to look at the destruction it had so gleefully wrought. The dread building in her heart, she glanced toward the house through the smoke. She spotted a small figure struggling to escape the ruins. Grandma. At the sound of her voice, the old woman began waving frantically. "She's alive! She's alive!" Her legs sprang to life, raced across the yard toward her lady friend, her grams. But unfortunately, the blast sent Kaine tumbling through the air before slashing against the rocky earth. The one time I fucking skim the text is when a fucking explosion happens. Man, fuck my luck, right? Stars dance in front of her eyes as she tries to remember how her legs worked. Get up, get up, get up, get up, do it. She struggled to her feet, the shade stomped toward the house, and pinned her grandmother to the ground with the tip of a claw. The old woman struggled to move the claw from her stomach. She might as well have been pushing him out. She coughed briefly, sending a small spray of blood into the air. Collapsed to the ground, her energy spent. Kaine lurched to her feet, only to fall back to earth with a gasp. Her ankles were on fire. One or both of them were surely broken. Ignoring the pain that screamed through her body, she began dragging herself across the ground, leaving a drunken trail of dust and blood in her wake. Oh, Grandma. Hold on. Just a little longer. Her grandmother's face was turning blue, and her eyes rolling back until only whites were exposed. Kaine pulled herself across the ground with maddening slowness, the distance seeming to increase with every second that passed. The shade glanced between the two women and flicked out its tongue, its giant mouth turning up at the corners. Short, panting breaths belched from somewhere deep inside its core. Bastard, laughing at us. She had no idea how such a mindless creature could experience emotion. There could be no doubt that the shade was taking joy in their suffering. "Yeah, I see your plan." The shade moved its claw slightly, allowing Grandma to breathe again. It was clearly keeping her alive, only to snuff out her life when Kaine was close enough to touch her. "I'm gonna kill this bastard." Summoning all her strength, Kaine rose to her feet. There was a sickening snap from her right ankle as the foot twisted backward, but she forced it from her mind and began to hobble toward the monster. Pulling a small knife from the pouch at her waist, she leapt on the foot that pinned her grandmother and plunged the weapon deep. "Give her back," she screamed. "Give her back to me." It was like stabbing a rock. After a few swipes, the knife broke at the hilt with a dull snap. Shade panted laughter again, then raised its tail and sent it rushing through the air toward the young girl that was latched to its foot. Kaine never had a chance. The leg struck her square in the chest and sent her crashing into the burning wreckage of her home. As she laid on the ground with blood pouring from multiple wounds, a small weak voice spoke up. "Kaine?" Kaine's vision blurred, but she forced herself to focus on the sound. Finally, her eyes cleared, enough for her to make out her grandmother's hands reaching out to her through the smoke. "Grandma." "Kaine, you gotta run. You can't defeat him." Kaine grabbed the hands and held on with all her strength. Grandma, come on, we have to go. The old woman coughed loudly. One of her hands, slick with blood, slipped from Kaine's grasp and thumped to the ground. Grandma, no, no! I said, run, goddammit, you have to live, you have to get through. The thought would stay forever unfinished. Before she could say another word, the Shade's clawed foot descended, smashing through the remains of the roof and down upon the shattered figure of the old woman. Blood oozed thickly from the gaps in the creature's toes as the terrible putrid smell assaulted Kaine's nose once again. She stared at the foot, dumbfounded and convinced that what she was seeing could not possibly be real. When the creature finally lifted its appendage, all that remained underneath was a twisted, unrecognizable mass of rubble and red. Her grandmother was gone. Kaine blinked, trying to feel the hands which had been in hers just a moment before. For a fleeting instant, she could remember the warmth of that embrace, the trembling of the fingers, but then the sensation drifted away on the breeze and was gone. Memories flashed through Kaine's mind, one after the other, faster and faster, until they became a meaningless jangle of noise. Kaine screamed then, a thunderous sound that echoed off the cliffs and seemed to roll away forever. The Shade had eased forward, black ichor pouring from its mouth. What the fuck is ichor? Someone tell me in the comments. And dissolving into smoke in the ground below. I'm assuming it's like goo. The earth shook with every step as it crept toward its prey. Kaine's body slowly rose, if controlled by a mad puppet master. Her arms and legs were bent at impossible angles, her head lolled dangerously to the side, yet somehow she managed to stand. Staring at the Shade, her eyes began to glow with a deep red fire. The creature, so confident just moments before, took a slow, hesitant step backward, trying to discern if the broken human could possibly pose a threat. Kaine seized the moment. Laughing like a madwoman, she leapt into the air and plunged the shattered hilt of the knife deep into the leg of the Shade. The Shade shook Kaine off like a fly, sending her crashing to the earth once again. Her chest rose and fell slowly, as if a great weight were resting on it. Moist sounds of pain echoed through her mind. Something warm and thick oozed from her ears. Is that blood? Think it is. Think I'm bleeding to death. No, can't die. Grandma told me to live. Deep inside Kaine's mind, something finally broke. The sound, the pain, the smoke and the flames. All of it faded away until all that remained was a single incantation, repeated over and over again. Kill it. Kill it. Kill it. Kill it a bunch more times. A lot more times. Like, literally all of it there. Now, specifically. Not later, now. As the spark that was Kaine slowly began to flicker and die, she felt her desire to kill and her desire to live blend into one. The distance between heartbeats grew longer and longer and longer.
The beast approaches.
Oh, I got it.
You want to go, monster? Because we can go. Somehow I feel like we've done this before. Okay, I'm actually one-shotting you now. You're even more of a joke than you were before.
What anger this creature must have. How did it even survive these past 5 years?
I'm not gonna let this happen again. He dies today. My sword feels lighter.
It's not the blade, but the skill of the user. Strike him down!
Hey, he's dead. Again. No! Don't do this! Ah, shit. Fuck God, motherfucking... To the people who are enjoying this Let's Play, you're welcome. Gently, weakly, softly, the shade, sure that its tormentor was dead, turned and stomped toward the horizon, stopping along the way to bellow one final roar. Couldn't kill it. So sorry, Grandma. Couldn't avenge you. Shamed beyond imagining, Kaine tried to turn her head to the side, but only succeeded in coughing up a huge gout of blood. It was getting difficult to see, and only after a moment of fierce concentration did she realize that her left eye was gone. Laughing to herself, she turned the remaining eye to the ruins of her home and noticed a ragged stump of arm resting a few feet away. Yeah, that's mine, she thought with a mad giggle. This is gonna make clapping a real bitch. Ha! What? She cried, a sudden voice in the depths of her mind. Finally gonna die, are ya? Well, you had it coming. Go to hell, Demo, she thought at the unseen assailant. Go to hell before I pluck out your eyes and feed them to a dog. The voice of her childhood terror evaporated into smoke, only to be replaced by another, more recent voice. Hold still, said the apothecary, materializing from the ruins like a ghost. I want to draw you. That way you can live forever. No, stop. Don't want to live forever. Want to die right here. I see, he said quietly. Well, that's how you want it. The spectral shopkeeper fluttered in and out of existence for a moment, and then produced a piece of paper and sketched quickly. After a few seconds, he turned the page to Kaine and smiled. Since you rejected my offer, I decided to draw someone else. It's a picture of her grandmother, real as life. Kaine opened her mouth to thank the man, but stopped as the picture began to blacken in the middle. Before she could say anything, thousands of multi-legged insects began to swarm around the image, tearing at it with sharpened pincers. Stop, no, don't hurt that picture. Kaine reached out with her remaining arm and waved futilely in the air. To her surprise, the insects fell off the picture and to the ground, where they vanished into tiny black tendrils of smoke. Relieved, Kaine turned her good eye back to the picture, only to open her mouth in a silent scream. The sketch now showed her grandmother as she truly was, a smashed, unrecognizable lump of nothing. The apothecary smiled, then broke into a jolly dance. See that? He cried as he danced his jig. It's perfect now. She looks just like you. Ha-cha-cha-cha-cha. I look like that? Oh God, I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die. Drowning in despair, Kaine laid her head back in the mud and smoke of her ruined house and waited for the end to come. But just before she let everything go, an unfamiliar voice began whispering in her ear. Ain't you got a wish, sunshine? The voice was vulgar and fierce at the same time, as if insanity had somehow found a way to take form. Kaine wanted to scream as the voice crawled under her skin, but her lungs refused to work. You know, wish. Like a prayer or something? Why don't you get on your knees and start praying to heaven? Please, invisible man in the sky, save me, save me. Kaine finally resorted to shouting at the voice with her mind. I don't make wishes, they don't come true for me. I'm a curse, a freak, should be left to die. The other voice boomed in her ears. Oh God, you're the best. Kaine glanced down and saw a black shiny substance oozing from her leg. She tried to brush it away, but her remaining arm would no longer respond. The substance slowly crept around her feet and then began moving up toward the rest of her body. Is this death? Is this what it's like? Or is my mind just losing itself? She could feel the slime oozing upward, feel the hot searing pain it left in its wake. Whatever else might be happening, she was still alive, and this was very real. Come on, said the voice. Let it go. Kaine tried to ignore the voice and concentrate on the pain, but the newcomer would have none of it. Don't ignore me, sunshine. You're ready to give up, ready to die. So why not let me have it? Have what? Your body. Come on, give it to me. Give it to me. I want to stand on the ground, feel the rain, taste the wind. The voice paused as if licking its lips. When it resumed, it was filled with mad, unabated joy. And I want to take your hands and use them to choke the goddamn life out of people. I want to tear out their throats and bathe in their blood just like before. In response, Kaine shifted her head and vomited. The warmth of it crept down her front and mingled with the pain of the encroaching black ooze. Are you a shade? Maybe. What of it? The slime reached her face, crept up past her nose, and oozed into the socket of her missing eye. The moment it touched her brain, Kaine was struck by the most powerful sensation she had ever felt in her life. It was ecstasy. She wanted to scream with delight, but all she could do was manage a small, whispered moan. Feels good, don't it? Asked the voice with a chuckle. Yeah, what can I say? I know how to please the ladies. Now give me this body. Give me the body, and I'll give you more of this feeling. It's a fair trade. Black lump began to protrude from Kaine's side. As she watched, it grew longer and thicker, eventually taking the form of her missing arm. I can see better, she thought. My eye must be growing back too. The slime reached up to envelop the rest of her face, but she managed to brush it away. Stop, she whispered, marveling at how she'd regained her voice. Stop. Black Ooze hesitated as if considering this request, then quickly shimmered down her body before disappearing in a cloud of smoke. Oh, what the hell, sunshine? Screamed the voice. We had a deal. I thought you wanted to die. Grandma said I can't die yet. A brief image of her grandmother, bloodied and broken, flashed before her eyes. She saw the shade that had killed her and heard its mocking laughter, then closed her eyes and forced the image from her mind. I'm afraid to look at the length of the video right now. Oh god, it looked. Her whole body was quaking with rage. When she opened her eyes again, they burned bright red. That thing took my grandmother. I have to kill it before I die. Kaine glanced down and saw a mysterious pattern. The pattern of the shades burn itself into her left arm. Well, I'll be damned, said the voice cheerfully. Look at that, sunshine. I think you and me are gonna be good friends now. Kaine stared intently at her arm. The more emotional she felt, the more the letter seemed ready to puncture her skin and begin affecting. Okay, so she's becoming a shade, right? This is the moment. I thought the moment had already passed, because they keep calling her a freak at the beginning, and I assumed it was because of her appendages. So, do I have to Google this? Do I have to go? Why is Kaine? What? Why does it autocomplete to why is Kaine a hermaphrodite? Oh, Jesus Christ. I shouldn't have looked. Oh, man. If you don't know what a hermaphrodite is, she's got both down there. She's double the fun. God damn it. How can you fit that in there? Your outfit's too tight. Oh, that's why they would call her a freak. that makes sense. That's fucked up. Why don't you just get up and die so I can have this body to myself? What do you say? I bet those buddies of yours in the area would love to see you dead. Kaine grabbed a nearby shard of glass and tried to saw off the shade-infected portion of her side. Before she could, her darkened left arm grabbed her right wrist, crushing it. Kaine screamed and dropped the shard, and the sound of bone crunching on bone filled the air. You're possessed now, sunshine. There ain't no going back. The voice laughed again. It seemed to go on without end. Possessed? Yeah, possessed. You and me, you got what we may call a timeshare arrangement. Remember how folks used to think you were a freak? Well, wait till they get a load of you now. Kaine looked up, tears in her eyes. The sky seemed smaller somehow, darker. Is this because of that shade? Is this how they see the world? So listen, I know this whole possession thing seems a bit sudden, and it ain't all bad. There's plenty in it for you too. I'm a very polite creature, and now that power belongs to you. You got enemies, people who want to kill, I can make it happen. That little fat kid who kept picking on you, that big old shade that squashed your granny, will wrap them up in their own assholes. No more abuse for you, no more pain. Why would you help me kill another one? Well, you think I'm some... What, you think I'm some kind of racist, some killing snob? I don't give it a good goddamn who you murder, honey pants. I just want to drink from the well. Alright. After a long pause, the voice spoke up again. So, how about it? You and me. We could have some good times together. I'll even take care of the bloody part if you don't want. I'll handle the killing. Look at you go. We're gonna have fun. Listen, my name is Tyran. Tyran. I guess Tyran. And if you ever need me, I'll be hanging out in this piece of meat you call a heart. Alright. Alright, so she's gonna get revenge against the, against that shade. I've shit bigger than you, so good luck with that, Jesus Christ. And this explains why she refuses to come with us at the end of the first ending of the game. And refuses to go into any villages and refuses to do all that. Because she can't get soft. She can't allow herself to become a good person. Or a happy person, I guess. She began poking and prodding at her new limb, determined to find something wrong with it. She didn't want it to feel normal. That would mean the creature inside her had already won. I'm not a shade. I'm Kaine. Repeating this mantra in her mind, she slowly began digging through the rubble of her house, being careful to ignore a certain red stained spot in the corner. After what seemed like an eternity, she found what she was looking for. The wreath of lunar tears. Though it had been through hell and back, the garland petals were bright as ever. She started to place it in her hair, then slowly lowered the wreath and stared at it. I'm so sorry, Grandma. I don't deserve to wear this anymore. I'm possessed, corrupted, a freak. And this time I don't think there's any going back. Holding the flowers to her heart, she fell to the ground and sobbed. As night gradually lightened to dawn, and the people of the area rose to their daily lives, she remained in that position, as if tears could somehow wash away the horror that now infected her world.
Alive. Stay alive. Stay alive.
Please don't let there be any more.
Grandma. Kaine, you gotta live. You gotta come back to us.
Who are... Emil, you were the one calling me, huh?
You still recognize me?
Yeah, sure. I knew you right away.
Thank you, Kaine.
Good to see you, Kaine.
You look like shit. How long has it been?
5 years.
Oh, that's a long time. Any luck with Yona?
We are still no closer to finding her. We need a way to locate the Shadow Lord.
This is for you.
tears. Did you make this?
It's just a little welcome back gift. It's not much, I know.
It's nothing like the one Grandma used to make, but... oh, hell. Thanks.
Excuse me.
Popola, we did it. We freed Kaine.
That's great. Listen, can I talk to you for a minute?
This doesn't make sense.
Please, try to understand. People are tired and scared, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry you have to bear the brunt of that.
It's crap.
It's okay. We can sleep outside.
No one's sleeping outside. You and Kaine saved this village, and now they want to run you out?
People are afraid of us. And really, I understand. I mean, look at me. As long as you're still with us, I can deal with it. Right, Kaine?
I'm used to sleeping outside.
I'm sorry.
We'll see you later.
We're sorry.
Well, I guess this gives pretty much that entire set of 2 scenes a lot more impact.
What is the matter?
Kaine always sleeps outside. I never thought about that until just now. How could I have not noticed that? How selfish am I? What the hell is wrong with me?
We should turn in.
Okay. And then it's gonna kind of straight go through the dialogue here. What's gonna be interesting as I go through the second route is I'm probably gonna be talking over some of the cutscenes unless something different happens with them. So I'm also gonna skim text and shit like that. So expect that to happen because we are going on a loop of the exact same content. As far as a couple of viewers who were nice enough to inform me, the second loop has different stuff in it, but the third one does not really, to be honest. From what I saw, the third time I have to play this game, the only thing I need to show off is the end. Apparently, the end has something different, and obviously 2 ending choices. So, basically, I can just save right before the very end of the game, view the third ending, then view the fourth, but this is the only other time you're going to see me play through the main game again. It's bad enough we have to do that, but then again, people are hyping up that the second playthrough is very good. What are my thoughts after, you know, experiencing what we just experienced? It's alright, I guess, but it was definitely really, really long. I can't really say, like, positive or negative. Like, I don't regret, you know, experiencing her story. Part of me wishes that there was something... Part of me wishes they put more visuals to it. I don't know, like... Part of me wishes it was voice acted. Because the fact that it's not voice acted really hurts that, because it's just... Yo, you're gonna read fucking an hour of... You're gonna read an hour's worth of text... with a black background with the same music you've heard before. So, I'm putting this up against The Lost Odyssey, 1,000 Years of Dreams, and I really shouldn't do that because there's clearly a set of quality here, but, you know. Overall, it was fine. I enjoyed seeing what her full backstory is, and it gives her character a lot more depth and allows us to understand things quite a bit more. So, with that being said, we're going to start going through the loop again. So, obviously this means this will be a lot more tightly edited. In terms of, like, what am I going to cut and stuff like that, I do not know. I do not honestly know how I'm going to be handling this, whether or not I'm going to be, like, cutting out chunks and chunks and chunks of this, because I don't know how the narrative content in the second playthrough is handled. I assume if it is handled to where it's like, you know, the whole playthrough feels like there's something new added to it as we go, then the only thing I'm going to cut is traveling to areas, but otherwise we will have to see. You will find out tomorrow when the new episode comes out, or if you hit the next part if you're watching this at a later date. This video has been going on for, an hour and 10 minutes. I hope you enjoyed today's edition of NieR, also known as Watch KZ Read and actually... I'm sorry that I kind of got out of character with reading some of that eventually, but I'm so exhausted. I'm so tired. It's like 2 in the morning. But hey, I was off my high of beating the Shadow Lord in our first run. We're going to continue Branch B in the next episode. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you later.